Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned into the vault. Trust Christian on, not to control everything. Just want to thank you for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listens in the replay. This is the vault. What we're talking about today: how to build credit with the trust. And this is episode 705. So, how do I build credit with the trust? This is a question we get. A lot of people don't end up wanting to ask Trust Christian. Why? Because they know it's a private trust when they come through the vault and trustee training. But we're gonna keep it for the people that trustees listen, and we as well have new listeners. So we're gonna cover that here today. How to build credit with the trust. A lot of people ask this question. So, and some people don't. So we're gonna talk about it today. Appreciate everybody tunes in live, listening to replay, episode 705. So people ask all the time, how do you build credit with the trust? Well, there's a few ways. Everybody says, oh, it's all these, I got a trust, I have a trust. So there's public trust and there's private trust. And when we get into the conversation about public and private trust, they're going to do things differently. Just like you hear public companies on the stock market, it's just like private companies that aren't listed on the stock market. They're considered private companies. So we're going to continue along that thought process where there are public trusts and there's private trusts. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and throw it out there. You ready to get a consultation? You can reach out to the email christian@trustchristian.com. Once again, that's christian@trustchristian.com. So we're going to move forward. The public side. The public side usually have statutory trust. Their statutory trust usually public side trust. They utilize some public law to have their inception or their power to be granted to them. It has some public law written in there. Alright? So we go to the private trust. The private trusts are usually private contracts between private people, private parties, without the government. So after we made that distinction, most people, they still say I have a trust. Well, if you have a trust, it sounds like you have a trust, which means it's a public trust, which means it's on the public side. So then if we go to the private trustees that come through trustee training, that reach out to Trust Christian Involved, and we work with them, they understand that it is a private contract and there's a way that the contract has to be crafted and created in order to make sure that it's private, and it's definitely without the government. So for everyone that says what's the difference between public and private trust, we're making it very clear. It's because one has its power granted through statutory and it's public. You say you have it. You say you created it. You say you own the trust. You say you have a trust. Whereas in the private sector, we have just people that are trustees. Just like the government says they trustees, the government, people in the private sector, we just trustees. So, okay, how does it look? How do I build credit? That's what I'm listening to this for right now. What you talking about? I want to hear it, but you got to hear the beginning and know how we get to the end, because people want to, oh, I don't know what type of trust I have, Trust Christian Involved. I just got to trust. Okay, now we know whether it's public or private, because they're doing things differently. Public trust, usually they're in the public, they have public documentation. When people come to trustee training and say, where do I register a trust? Well, you don't register a private trust. Public trusts are registered. That's why they're public, because they're registered in the public. So you have public trusts that are registered in the public. You pretty much know who's everything tied to, because there's nothing private about it. It's pretty much all public. All this public information is who's the grantor, who's the trustee. That has to be stated for the record, because they're the ones dealing with the affairs on it. And then who's the beneficiary? That's stated for the record, for the public. Alright, so we're going to continue on this line of thought. Okay, they got this public trust, right? What about the private one? So we go to the private. I'm a trustee. Grantor could be irrevocable. Most of the time it is irrevocable if it's private. Then on the back of that, beneficiary may or may not be disclosed to the public for sure. The only person that's really known in any realm, whether it's public or private, would be the trustee. So how do we get to this point of how do I build credit on the trust? Well, if the public entity is registered in the public, it's going to be fairly easy to build a business credit track record. they're gonna be able to get it. They're gonna be able to, pretty much, hey, I'm in the public, I'm registered with the state, or you're registered, yeah, you're pretty much registered with the state, might be registered with the Fed too, and in turn, it can go out and get public credit, lines of credit, public lines of credit. Basically going into a bank and get FDIC insured type money, because it's a public entity. It's like a corporation basically, but they call it a trust. That's what it is, a trust. So let's move over to what we would say, how do you build credit on a private trust? Because a lot of trustees are listening to this. We've had a lot of trustees. Shout out to all the trustees that have gone through trustee training. Trustee will go through and be like, well, Trust Christian, you gave them a remedy on the public side. On the public side, they can just, the trust is a person. We know that. But we don't know how to do it on the private side. How we do it on the private side. So we're going to go ahead and get y'all examples because, you know, it's hilarious to us to know that people that really have assets, like people that got property that's over $250,000 in value, people that got property over $500,000 in value, literally ask you that type of question. Where am I? How am I going to build credit on a trust when a trust actually has basically an asset, which is basically credit, quote unquote, and in turn you can collateralize it as a form of credit. So let's move into that. So we got trustees that'll say, "Oh, how do I build credit with a private trust or for a private trust or with a private trust?" All right. Usually, if the trust owns property outright, it has it in an asset strong position. By being in an asset strong position, basically, you know, why not go out to the market and see who's gonna allow you to put. They might put a first lien on it. They might put a lien on it. They may think about it. The bank puts a lien on the property when they say they put a mortgage out on it. So that's what they would do with the same thing with whatever assets you have. It could be land, could be gold, could be silver, it could be many things. Just depends on the financial institution and if they're lending for that sector. Because that's basically what they're going to do. You're asking the trust to go out and get credit, or get a line of credit, or get an extension of credit. And in turn, it is going to collateralize an asset. It is going to have a lien or some type of signatory for the debt instrument that's going to be issued. It's not rocket science. So we're gonna get into it. There's a lot of trustees reach out. They say these type of things, but they don't know what they talking about. And then they be upset. They go, Christian, I just be thinking about that because I'm so used to the public side. But that's not the way to approach it. The approach it is, well, how does the private trust do it? And first of all, if the private trust has assets and your so-called straw man, your government name, quote unquote, doesn't have assets or has bad credit, what difference does it make when the asset that you have is an asset and it's way more valuable than you if you're not in a position that you're worth more than the asset? So let's move in that capacity. The trustee doesn't own anything. You don't have any credit in the trust personally, but the trust is looking to build credit, quote unquote, in the private sector. So when you see people step in positions where they have assets and they're placed in the trust, or they're assets that are placed in the trust, yes, debt instruments can be issued. We're not giving legal advice or financial advice. We're sharing with you things that you can go to a financial advisor for and say, hey, we have assets. We want to collateralize them. We want to, possibly let a loan be taken out against them because we're looking to go into the debt market. So you're looking to go into the market and you're looking to utilize debt. Then you say you want to build credit, right? That means you know how to use debt. The trust knows how to manage debt. How do you build credit if you don't know how to manage debt? Think about that. So once again, we're here where, some people say, oh, in the private sector, that's what it looks like. Of course, that's what it looks like. You have assets that you can collateralize against, quote unquote. The trust can collateralize against their assets. It could be a watch. Some watches are worth 20 grand, 30 grand. That's an asset. It can be collateralized. A diamond ring. Diamonds can be collateralized. Oh man, I gotta figure out now you know how valuable your assets that you think or how much your liabilities are in your life because you're like, man, do I really have any assets? If you have diamond earrings, how are diamonds, if you take them and you quote unquote pawn them, they will have appreciative value. By you having appreciative value and that value being placed inside of the trust on the trust books, it's an asset on the trust books. By being an asset on the trust books, now we're having a conversation where if it's an asset on the trust books, well, can I take out a debt facility for this? Can I take out a debt facility for this? Where am I get the money from? Trust Christian to vote. The asset is the money, and it prints money. How many people know how to reach out to the right financial institution to even get that debt on a private trust? So, even sometimes where you'll see, for example, a trust may own an asset, but a public company may be leasing the property. So in turn, you see an exchange happen where the public company is being leased property and it can go out and get debt based off of the fact that it has contracts in place. It has basically a security instrument, a debt security instrument. Something may have been appraised, it may not have been appraised. Like whether it is, whatever type of certain type of property it is, then we clearly gonna see, okay, there's an appraisal to the situation. Whether it's real estate, whether it's diamonds, whatever it is, it's gonna be some type of appraisal value, and that value is going to be placed in trust. But can a corporation lease that property? Yes. Can a person lease that property? Yes. It can lease it. And in turn, you may have a public company that's out here doing business and it's actually building credit based off of the leases and the contracts that it has. Based off the fact that it has an asset, it has access to an asset, and it's looking to build a business based off of that asset. So, once again, diamonds, pearls, whatever it is, collectible art, you can put a lien in, not you, but maybe the financial institution or the financial lender. There are hard money lenders out here. There's a hard money lender. Trust Christian involved? Correct. Hard money lenders. They will collateralize the asset, and they will definitely, basically, they'll collateralize it and they'll definitely issue some money, but they're gonna make you pay for it. They might make you pay 10 points on that money. May make you pay 10% back on that, 13% back on that, 14% back on that money, and they the ones that gave you the money. But they also allowed you to hypothecate. They allow you to get, if they're doing that on the back end of the bank, well, they're allowing you to do that on the front end because you're now a secured debtor. There's a difference between a secured loan and an unsecured loan. People don't even know that. They trust Christian. I didn't know. I don't know how to go about that because I gotta personally guarantee everything. What do you need to personally guarantee an asset for when it's an asset without you? The reason why you personally guarantee on the public side is because they're saying you're not enough of an asset. It's not about liabilities. Think about it. You are a liability. Did they give you a loan? Did they extend you more credit? No, they're not extending you more credit. Why? Because you're a liability. They're basically saying you don't know how to manage debt. But you're not going in that way. You're looking to build credit from a trust. Do you hear the difference? Get out of yourself. It's not about you. Now it's about what? These artificial entities that are operating in commerce out here that can actually go bankrupt. People so scared to go bankrupt themselves, but what happened to the companies that go bankrupt? Supposedly the United States done went bankrupt. So if the United States went bankrupt, what you so scared for? Oh no, Trust Christian, you don't know what you're saying. You don't know. I don't want to do that. Okay, that's how people be talking to the vault. Oh, I don't want to do that. Okay, but when it comes to taking an asset now, where you're not actually, you're actually allowing somebody to put a debt against your asset, and they gonna foreclose on your asset if they don't get their money back on the right debt schedule or something of that nature. If the covenants aren't honored, so they want their money back. They want what you would consider money back, but it's a debt instrument in the first place. Some people try to say, "Oh, the government's money's not real." Okay, you still want to be extended credit. How are you gonna be extended credit? Can you be extended credit in other ways? Yes, you can. Does it always have to be monetary? No, it does not. People say, "Oh man, well, is it a loan? Is it a line of credit?" Do people even talk in that language? Yes, some things are lines of credit, not just to get a loan. You're not always looking for a loan because a loan is a loan. A line of credit is a line of credit. So when we even had this discussion, well, trust Christian in the vault, how is it different building credit if you talking about I don't want to get a loan. A loan is different than credit, right? Or building my credit. Ain't that the same thing? A line of credit is not just you building your credit. A line of credit is a line of credit. Just like a loan is a loan. If you get a loan and don't use it, you won't get your credit won't the credit won't go up. The credit score won't go up. You can get a loan and not use it and your credit won't go up. And when we say not use it, that means they've given you a loan. You don't do anything with it, you just pay it back, right? Because they gave you the money. It's a loan, right? Right. So it's a line of credit. They extend you a line. They don't necessarily give you it all. They give you access to a line. Hmm. How many people are building lines of credit with the trust, whether it's with a public trust or with a private trust? How do you do that with a private trust, Trust Christian involved? Well, the private trust can own corporations. That's how the corporations are private. So when you hear private corporations, how does a private corporation build credit? Yeah, I didn't know that. There's no such thing. I've never heard of this. I don't know. How come my lawyer did not tell me about a private corporation getting credit? Did you ask? A lot of people are going to say, oh, well, the lawyer didn't offer me that information. The accountant didn't offer me that information. It's so much information. So, think about it. If the trust has collateral, has hard assets, diamonds, art, it has cars, it has these houses. Trustees, you know how many trustees got property or worth over $100,000 and they working jobs because they not going to take out money out of the family estate to go out and start something on their own and scale it real quick. Well, you know what? If you going to work a job and you sitting on $100,000 in property, you're better off. And it's not legal advice or financial advice. Why would you not just go out and buy a franchise for like $30,000, $50,000, $60,000 when you know that the franchise is going to yield you $500,000, going to basically give you 100K, maybe 200K as a salary, and the company pays for itself. It's a franchise. Like, what are we talking about here? We're still in this age of like, oh, I'm sitting on a $100,000 asset. They sitting on it. I'm sitting on a $100,000 asset. I'm sitting on $200,000 in assets. I'm sitting on $60,000 worth of assets. It's not interesting. It's just like, okay, so we have conversations with them, and they'll tell us like, I have assets. I got over $100,000 in asset. How do you build credit? The same way that you would buy a franchise. The franchise is going to say, okay, we see that the entity has collateral, so you're going to be issued a debt note. That means they're going to issue you some type of credit, right? Yes. And you're going to pay it back. The trust is going to pay it back with interest. That's a line of credit. But oh no, no. Here we go. Oh, Judge Christian, the public side, come back to us, because my lawyers set me up in the public trust. And I don't really think I have a private trust yet, because they didn't really explain it to me. But I know I have a trust. So since I have a trust, how do I build credit on a trust? How do I build credit with a trust? Well, on the public side, as you're aware, the public side is registered on the public side. So most financial institutions on the public side will they'll tell you, okay, if you don't have any assets in here either, then yes, you will have to personally guarantee it. Why? Because it's on the public side. They're going to see that you're one of the officers of the company, and since you're one of the fiduciaries or you're financially responsible for the company, they're going to say, okay, even if it was irrevocable on the public side, they're going to still say, okay, well, since it's irrevocable and it doesn't have any credit and it doesn't have any assets, you may have to personally guarantee it. And you're right. That's what they're going to say to you. They're going to say you have to personally guarantee it. Why? Because the trust is irrevocable. That's what the lawyer sold you. And then on the back end of that, what else did the lawyer, what else did you do? Well, you're the trustee and it's a public trust. Well, there's no assets in it, correct? Do you have any assets in the trust? Oh, I got my house in here, Trust Christian. I don't even want to know how many public ones say that. Oh, man, I got my house inside the trust. I got the house inside the trust, Christian. Okay. Do you have lines of credit? Does the trust have lines of credit? Are you personally guaranteed things from this point forward? The trust is a person. It could personally guarantee. Did you know that? You could be. How does the trust personally guarantee but you the trustee? Because the trust is a person. That's why. The trust is a person like me and you. That's why it's so powerful. That's why it's a utilized entity to shield you, the individual, quote unquote. Even they got you on that term, but you, the live being, from commerce. That's supposed to be your private remedy. That's supposed to be your private way to operate in commerce. But instead, people have been sold debt. So they go into the public debt market with their public government name. They go into the public markets with the public straw man. They go into the public markets with that entity. But then when you say, okay, I want to build credit on a trust, okay, and on my public trust, because the lawyer didn't set me up in a private trust, so I know it's a public trust, and I got to personally guarantee things. But little do I know, if the entity has enough assets in it, and I actually operate with them being just a fiduciary and not trying to act as the halfway owner, well, y'all see public trust all the time on cars and on, a lot of stuff. They get lines of credit. Think about it. The government's supposed to be bankrupt, but the politicians is riding around in armored vehicles. The politicians is riding around in the cleanest, squeakiest suits, and it's not just from their business. That's just the reality. So here we go. If the politicians is supposedly declared the country bankrupt, and then look, the politicians so comfortable, they're willing to blame the citizens and say the citizens owe the government money. How? The citizens can't issue debt. But since you have a social security number, they created money out of thin air. Oh, you didn't want to hear that. Well, if you weren't alive, if you weren't able to transact, they wouldn't issue money. But because you're alive, they issue debt. It's a debt instrument. They issued it because you're born. That's why people get into that argument about the birth certificate. Oh man, the government, what got a birth certificate? It's got a QSIP number on it. Okay. Are you acting as the trustee or the beneficiary? Are you benefiting from refund checks, or are you giving that to the government? Talking about it's an overpayment. So we gonna get to that actually. We actually probably gonna bring on our tax expert, who's an enrolled agent who worked for the IRS. So we might bring them on, and then we're gonna go over how to do the taxes. We've done an episode on it. It's called How to Prepare Taxes for a Trust. It's actually one of our highlight episodes. So if you go to the Vault page, you'll actually see it as one of our highlight episodes. We did a episode with Larissa Humphreys from Abundant Returns. And so yes, she's worked for the three-letter name, and as well she it has her own consulting company now and does taxes, and that's that. Somebody that actually an enrolled agent, that means they took a test to defend you in front of the IRS. They took a test to defend you in front of the IRS. They took a test. The IRS gave them the test, and they took it and they passed it. So we not hooking you up with no fugazi. So it's like, oh, how does that person? I don't want to be a fraud. Yeah, I don't want to be a part of a fraud, right? A hairy fraud, right? But when you talk about whose credentials you going to accept, whose credentials are you going to accept? Are you going to be a halfway believer, or are you actually going to have faith and say, you know what? This person right here, I can see that they've taken a test per the IRS. So at that point, I don't need to hear nobody else talking. I need to know what's called insider information. And the person can defend you in front of court. It's not a maybe, they can. So we're going to bring them on. The episode, once again, is How to Prepare Taxes for a Trust. It's the main episode on our page. How to prepare taxes for a trust. But this one in particular, how to build credit with a trust. Once again, first of all, there's a mindset to being a trustee. Are you a public trustee or a private trustee? We're going to go ahead and give out the super code for the private trustees, because a lot of private trustees, we're gonna drop bombs on y'all from here on out. These episodes are going to be very impactful because of the things that we know that trustees are secretly saying to themselves, but they're afraid to come forth because they know they not being a full trustee. They may not be up on par as being a trustee. And it's like, well, we had a trustee literally call us the last day of the year talking about doing a distribution. Y'all don't want to hear that. Y'all do not want to hear that. You could sit here and say, oh, I'm a good trustee. If you waited till December 31st talking about you gonna do, and look, y'all don't even want to know, this was more than $50,000. So when you sit here, oh man, I gotta do a distribution of $5,000. I gotta do a distribution of $10,000. I gotta do a distribution of $23,000. Family, we gotta get the distribution done. Everybody, we're gonna wait till the end of the year. It's December 31st. We're distributing 23,000. No, we're talking trustees. Reached out to us the last day of the year. Said trust Christian Vault. We gotta distribute over $50,000. Y'all think y'all going through something? Y'all think y'all not doing the distributions right? I ain't doing it, Trust Christian. Yeah, we can see that. There are trustees that are not doing it. And then y'all hear their story, and does that get you off the river of denial? Are you the most adept at trusteeship to where you feel confident? Would you be willing to bankrupt your family estate? Y'all don't even want to hear no talk like that. Would you be willing to bankrupt the family trust real quick? Because, oh man, Trust Christian, we mismanaged it for 2, 3 years. We mismanaged it for a year. Y'all don't even want to hear that type of talk. Because you trying to build credit on it. So, bankrupt, we ain't going to get to that conversation yet, but we going to get there. Because people are afraid of these type of thought processes. When they say the government bankrupt, they could say everything else is bankrupt, but if they family estate was in that situation, oh man, I could never let that happen. You just sat here and said the government is bankrupt. Is the government not bankrupt? And don't they always talk about debt? When does the government talk about issuing credit? Hmm. So we right here, public. Oh man, I gotta PG things. I gotta personally guarantee things. Because what? Because you're in a position where you haven't made sure that you're doing the right things. Making sure that the trust is its own distinct person. The things that you're not supposed to do, you're not supposed to use it as an alter ego. That's what the lawyer is going to tell you. Oh yeah, it's either an alter ego or it's not. Is it an alter ego? Y'all don't want to hear this type of talk. When the last time your lawyer accountant said, oh yeah, your corporation is an alter ego. Your trust is an alter ego. A living trust is an alter ego. It's a front man. It's not your straw man, it's your front man now. Huh? It's your front man. It's the way you're supposed to interact with commerce, or a way to interact with commerce. A way to interact with the public, because we have general welfare rules. That's why we have these other alphabet names, so they can protect the consumer and things like that. Protect free trade, right? So, we're here. People say, oh, how do I build credit with a trust? Well, you clearly hear that if you're acting as more than a fiduciary, you might personally guarantee it. Think about it. We're going to go ahead and give trustees in this episode a lot of meat to chew on. This is one to chew on. So say the trustee is the beneficiary too. And the beneficiary is like, okay, I'm getting distributions. I might have assets that are set aside for me as credits. So I should be able to go out and take a loan against it, because it's sitting on the value of my certificate as a beneficiary. Beneficiary has a certificate, it might have value that's held on that certificate. So it could be like issued like a stock, it could be issued in that type of form, but it's not a stock, it's actually considered just a beneficiary certificate. So they might have value in that certificate. The certificate might have value because it might hold value in assets. Alright. So the beneficiary says, okay, I'm going to take this and get it collateralized. Here we go back to that word. How many of y'all listening and actually know what the word collateralized mean? Type into the chat if you know or don't know what collateralized mean. Because that beneficiary may say, all right, you know what, I'm about to go out and collateralize this. I'm about to get a line of credit against this. I'm about to try to get a loan against this because it's an asset. It has asset value. Somebody could look at this and say, you have access to this, we're going to put a lien against it. Or they may find a way to say, we can just issue line of credit because of that. The beneficiary can do that if they have that in the clause that says they can go out and do that. So say you, quote unquote, may be the beneficiary. Isn't that what you do with the social security number? The government created a social security number. Yep. And you take the number and go into the public markets and get credit and get debt. See how that works? That's the same way the trust gonna work. It's just like you went out and you took a private number, because that was issued privately. It wasn't issued by no credit facility on the public side. It was issued by who? The government. It's their trust. So when you operate in a private trust, that's the proper position. But if you operate from a public trust, that's another position. So now let's continue. The public trust can go out and get credit and debt just like the social security number. The private trust, it may be a little bit more restricted in the public. Why? Because public and private don't mix. So what you see a lot of the times is you'll see that a lot of public agencies don't like dealing with private people and private institutions. They just don't. They want more records. And that's the way it is. So some people just don't aren't used to saying, hey, you gotta figure out how to get the proper the entity looking to where public credit and debt facilities want to issue credit or debt in the public markets. And they're pretty clear about what they issue credit and debt for. They tell you that. They're very upfront about that. They tell you that. It's just the bottom line. You can go interview any financial institution. They'll tell you what they do to issue credit and what they do to issue debt. So you have a choice. Are you going to do it in the social, or are you going to do it in a private trust, or are you going to do it in a public trust? Those are the questions that it would come down to. Just like we spoke on the episode recently, where there's an athlete named John Morant. Now think about this. He's an athlete getting paid over $100 million a year. And you think about it. Y'all talk all that smack. Oh, trust Christian. I'm supposed to have a trust. But oh no, your mentor said if you only supposed to have a trust if you got $1 million. Okay, guess what? John Morant got 100 million, and we're not going to speak on his money, but we're going to speak on the public contract that the NBA supposedly paying him, and they say the money, some of the money is guaranteed. So here we go. If you're getting $100 million, we're going to minimize it now. Say you're getting $50 million a year. The advice that you're supposed to be getting for all y'all to think, if you make 50 million, you're supposed to get great advice, trust Christian involved. How is it great advice when y'all can look this up right now as we speak this? They said John Morant bought a house in a trust in Miami. Now, how does that make sense for privacy? If he's going to get robbed now we know why he's going to get robbed like these athletes do. I'm not speaking it upon him. It's because, what? Because they have it for public record that his trust, quote unquote, we'll say it again, his trust, just like you say it's your trust, his trust bought a house in Miami. How is that privacy? It's no privacy at all. But oh no, trust Christian. I gotta have $1 million. There's $1 million involved if you want to have a trust. If you want privacy, you gotta have $1 million. Clearly, this man has supposedly over 50 million. And clearly, y'all see that the news, that the team that he may have around him, and the league itself has not put a protective measure to protect him and his safety as an asset. Why? If someone of that value, it's like a wealthy person. What wealthy person you supposed to know their address? That means people could come and stalk you. Clearly, these athletes, y'all can look up these stories of athletes getting robbed. Major football players, Mahomes, y'all love, don't y'all love Taylor Swift and Kelsey? Guess what? His house got robbed last year. In the past 2 years. Oh no, trust Christian. You're really telling me that Travis Kelsey, an NFL player, he dates Taylor Swift, she could be at his house, she could be really at his house, and that address is for public record? Yeah, clearly he got robbed. What y'all talking about? This man making over $25 million. This man making over $10 million a year. What if a quote unquote $1 billion asset as a woman, and his address is exposed for public record? Oh no, trust Christian, you can't speak on nobody's business like that. Well, we don't need to speak on it. The public record shares that information. But supposedly, because they're making $1 million, they're supposed to be in trust. Clearly, that's not the case. Because if they were in trust, no one would know that he, quote unquote, is invested in that property or is invested in that asset. But the politicians are in blind trust. Ooh. So they're investing in the war right now. Oh, don't say it like that. I want to believe in the good of people. We would like to too. So back to it. The athletes' properties are exposed because they're in a public trust. Bottom line, if he was in a private trust, you wouldn't even know. Once again, you would not know that he owns that property or his trust owns that property. How would you know that if it's private? You don't know that. It's a sorry hush hush for the realtor. Why? Because then they couldn't speak on who owns the house. And whether y'all know it or not, it's actually advantageous to buy the daggone house in a private trust. It's actually advantageous to buy these assets privately. Why? Because then you wouldn't see people try to charge more because you're the super athlete or you're a rich person. People are going to charge a rich person more just because they think you got some shekels to dispose of. You could lose. Oh, it doesn't matter. You don't care about $30,000. I'm gonna go ahead and get my extra 100 basis points on this. So if I was a real estate agent, I was gonna get 2%. I'll get 3. It's not a big deal. You're a millionaire. What difference does it make? Right. So if the athletes aren't protected and they're getting robbed, and y'all don't want to know how bad it is for these athletes, like it's one of those. We could start a law firm just protecting athletes. Why? Because how are they protecting the athletes when athletes are dying because of it? It's been going on for the since they've been allowing this. To hey, you make a big check, it's for public record, right? They try to keep the contracts hush hush what's in the contracts, but they share how much is in the contract that the athlete's making. Okay, well if the athlete's making over $5 million a year, that means they're an asset to your company. But we're not going to talk about institutionalization. But clearly, if the athlete is a okay, do y'all think that these companies aren't putting insurance on these athletes with or without the athlete's permission? What are we talking about here? The athletes aren't an asset. The athlete is an asset. So if the athlete is an asset, the property that's under that athlete is almost like a coaching tree. You're helping them break the generational wealth curse. You're helping them make millions of dollars. You have to protect that athlete, not only in health, but also the safety of the athlete, even their family and their residents. That means that the corporation has to protect them. But you want to know how they don't protect them? They actually call these athletes employees. So they don't have to caretake for you. You're not a dependent, but you are. Why? Because the company has to take out employee insurance against you, correct? Right. So how are you not a dependent? Don't they got an insurance fund for the athletes? Yes. They got a retirement fund for the athletes. You play in the leagues, in these leagues for over 3, 5 years. They know you pass the league minimum. You get on your second contract stuff. You get a part of the retirement fund that they have. So some people, y'all don't want to know. We've been around these retired ones. It's not that it's not enough money, but once again, we're talking about the ones that have the bigger contracts, even guaranteed money status. How is it that their address, if they're in trust, is exposed? And you think, oh man, I don't have $50 million. I don't have $25 million. How am I going to protect my asset, my address if he can't? Right. That's what people think. But there are trustees that hey, maybe he didn't buy the property outright. So in turn, might have a mortgage. Still could have bought it with a public trust. And that's what it looks like he did. In turn, what did they say? It's his trust. Maybe they said that it's his trust. Why? Because he personally guaranteed it too. Even though he has a public guaranteed contract that he can collateralize. Bottom line. He can collateralize the guaranteed money, not the future earnings, but the guaranteed money supposedly that's guaranteed, right? Right. Doesn't the corporation isn't that a form of the corporation extending credit to the social? Oh man, corporations do that? Yes. Isn't that how you get fringe benefits? Don't they have access to the players' facility? Can't they go in there when they feel like it and, get their body straight? They may not be as but they are level of accoutrements like a major tech company. You know how the tech companies have these like gyms at the facilities, they have sleeping places at the facilities. That's what they have at these tech companies. Well, don't these athletic facilities have places you can rest and recover your body, sleep, watch TV, work out, all do all this stuff, eat, all this type of stuff. Live, it's like a mini city. how did we get off so far, Trust Christian, onto what you're talking about right now? We're talking about how do you build credit with a trust. How do you build credit with a trust? That's easy. But the question is it a public one or a private one? So if y'all want to go over that, you can feel free to reach out, Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, that's Christian at trustchristian.com. It's in the description as well. But ladies and gentlemen, we're having that conversation today because so many in the private sector are like, oh man, Trust Christian, we got in private trust, man. We really wanted to protect their assets, but from what you said previously and from what we're aware, it's kind of challenging to build public credit with a private entity, right? Because the private entity usually leases out property. The private entity usually holds hard assets that it gets credit extended against. That's how that looks. Really? Yep. So we appreciate everybody tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listening to replay. Feel free to type into the chat where you listen to live, listen to replay. If you want to, get a further consultation, feel free to reach out, Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, it's Christian at trustchristian.com. Look forward to hearing from you all. Definitely looking forward to, seeing and hearing the best from everybody when it comes to the new year and their goals. Bunch of trustees have been listening, have already reached out. Ladies and gentlemen, we just want to let y'all want to sit here. The reason why we doing this episode, because we got trustees right now that have land and they're extending credit against their land. They're getting credit extended against their land. Oh man, they're mortgaging out the land to go out and get a loan. Maybe even get a line of credit. Maybe get an equipment loan. Maybe get a construction loan, a development loan, a bridge loan, a gap loan, credit facility, because they got the assets listed on the books. And okay, the trust is a person. It's just not a public person. It's not registered in the public. That doesn't mean that they can't see who's the title holder, who's the legal paper holder, and they can see that this private entity, this private person, quote unquote, has the ownership title. So in turn, they can see that as an asset on the books. It's that simple. And since they see the asset on the books, we're looking to find out how to address this. As simple as possible. How many people are, oh man, Trust Christian, I gotta make sure I finally give them the paperwork right. I gotta do the minutes. Y'all wanna go there? I gotta do the minutes. I gotta make sure that the assets are recorded on the books. Some of y'all wondering and fidgety and scared. Oh man, how do I just put assets on the trust books and no one's gonna know it? Well, it's private. If it's private. If it's public, y'all know that y'all might have to register the record somewhere. Might have to update the record somewhere. Might have to report it. Right? Right. That's the difference between public and private. Appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. Everybody, thank you everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, just bringing the best episodes to our listening audience right now. A lot of trustees and people are reaching out and, oh man, I want to do credit. I want to talk about the credit stuff. Well, we're here. The credit stuff is here. Once again, you do have to reach out. Once again, you do have to get educated. How are you gonna get the private information if you don't invest in your private education? You gotta invest in your private education. Bottom line. Oh man, Trust Christian, what does that look like? Is it gonna be expensive? Some people tapping out on their private education. Oh man, Trust Christian, I paid over $3,000 for a trust. I paid over $4,000 for a trust. I paid over $5,000 for a trust. I should know it all now. Really? Your college education that got you into public debt. Your college education that didn't get you financial freedom. And you want to sit here and talk about protecting $100,000 home or your family estate for generations to come. And you're talking about, oh, well, if I invested $4,000, I should be good for life. When do I gotta put up the next 4K? How soon do I gotta put up another 4K? And we talk to trustees about this all the time. There is a financial education in trusteeship. Yes, there is a financial education. It could cost you, and we shouldn't even be shy to even say this, ladies and gentlemen, with inflation, airplane tickets, it's like, how are you building generational wealth? Talking about you not investing over $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 plus in your financial education every single year, going to financial conferences, at least going to one financial conference every year, and it's not the same one every year, for sure. That's the bottom line. Or some people, oh man, if I just go to the same one every year, ain't nobody saying you gotta go to the same one every year. But at the end of the day, how are you not getting out the different financial seminars, quote unquote? Excuse me, they're not even seminars, they're conferences. It's not a seminar. It's a seminar stuff. What? It's not no seminar. Sure, people go to seminars, not knocking them, but oh man, we go to a financial seminar. No, we talking about actually going to. People talking about, oh, I want financial education. I'm gonna just look at it through YouTube. How? The information's private. It's in a private setting with private people. Private people, when they tell you, oh, I'm a high net worth investor or ultra high net worth investor, or we're, private equity, or we're venture capital, or we're angel investors. These people let you know they got over 10, 15, $20 million. And you think they just, oh, I'm gonna just drop the codes on the internet? Sure, we're not denying that. We know what you call billionaires or whoever. Sure, they do interviews, they sit on the internet, but no, for the most part, they're congregating in wealth forums and rooms together where they can minimize the noise, where they can have candid conversations, where you can actually go up to someone, shake their hand, talk to them, where you can actually ask them questions. That's the difference. How many people are aware of this? How many people are aware? Business credit. How to do that with a trust? Like we shared, this is a mouthful of an episode. Some trustees can be like, Judge Christian, you telling us to go ahead and get credit on the trust now? We're not saying that the private trust should go out and get a credit card. But most of the time, a public trust can't. Why? Because they're going to try to get the trustee to personally guarantee it if it don't have no real credit. And once the trust establishes on credit profile, you would think that the trustee would stop doing PGs. But they may keep getting the trustee to do a personal guarantee. Why? Because it's just trust, just because. But that's not to say it has to be that way. They just depending on how much you build the credit on the trust and the person, then quote unquote, it may get to a point where if you know how to ask the bank and talk to the bank or any financial institution, they'll just say, okay, the entity has its own credit profile. So we appreciate everybody tunes in live, listen, and replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listen, and replay. Feel free to reach out Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, that's Christian at trustchristian.com. Definitely looking forward to connecting with you all. And looking forward to y'all having a beautiful, beautiful 2026. And that comes from taking the reins right now. Taking the reins on the family and the leadership and the education. And is that going to cost you more than $2,000? You would hope that it does. Because anything less than $2,000, you would think that it's not worthwhile. Especially in today's market. The people that actually keep their price up will actually win. Why? Because the people that can afford a higher price, they're always going to be able to afford a higher price. The people that were fighting for the middle prices and lower prices, it's like, yeah, you're fighting for a customer that wants to gripe about, oh yeah, I don't want to give you 3,000 for my family education every year and to make sure we protect our family estate. Or what do you mean? That's somebody's salary. Somebody should be getting paid $30,000, $50,000 to protect the family estate every single year. That's like a minimum. And then when we get the CIO, which is Chief Investment Officer of your family estate, obviously you must be making a ton of money, so you can pay somebody $100,000 to $200,000 to manage your money. But for the most part, literally that's how it looks. Paying somebody about $100,000 to $200,000 a year to manage the money. So we definitely look forward to hearing from y'all. Look forward to hearing from y'all at Christian at trustchristian.com. Peace.